Today we're really privileged to have Michael Griffiths as our guest lecturer. Michael is actually here on campus. Michael is from England and his wife Corinne is from France, and they have 5 children. Michael is a pioneer in asynchronous video learning model. So he's going to probably talk a little bit about that. I'm not certain how much he'll cover. He's been a founder of 2 charter schools in Utah, has his PhD in instructional psychology and technology from BYU Provo. He's on the High Council in the BYU First Stake, single wards, with President Hanneman. We're really fortunate to have him here, and it's his department that helps us put together some of these videos that we have that you're watching. So they're doing some really, really interesting things for online learning here on campus, and when you're away from campus as well. So let's welcome Michael Griffiths with us here today.
Thank you, Richard. Well, everyone, aloha. Aloha. That's awesome to be here. I'm glad to be here. My kind of style of delivery is I'm happy for hecklers, questions all through. We'll have time for that at the end as well. But feel free if you've got anything to say while I'm talking. I'd be happy to deal with it. Just this last week, as I've been thinking about today, a whole ton of things are being flying around my mind, so we'll see how that pieces together. I hope it will turn out and make some kind of sense. I am currently the director of the online program here. We started that 3 years ago when I came here, and it's been very exciting. We now have students in 70 countries around the world taking online classes. It's just really fun to do that. But before we go into that topic, I just want to talk a little bit about some motives. I've always kind of been a creative person. I've always been a kind of person just been thinking up new ideas, kind of entrepreneurial, trying to make a difference, do things. Hasn't always worked out. I've had so many different types of ideas. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But before we talk about ideas and idea generation and entrepreneurship, I just want to talk about motives. In the church, I think I've observed there's at least 2 different ways you can see the gospel. One of the ways is that you get on with your life, you do what you do, you work, you choose what you want to do in life, and then on the side you have the gospel. So you have your life, and on the side of that, and kind of in addition to your life, is the church, the gospel. And the other way of looking at the gospel is your life. It's the center. The Lord is the center of it, and everything else depends on that. Everything else is around the outside of that central principle. And what I want to encourage and challenge you to think about today is to make sure that in your life that the Lord is central to your life, and the gospel is your motive for everything else that you do. And I'll get back to that a little bit later and talk how that has impacted me. I joined the church when I was 19 years old. Didn't know anything about it growing up, but I still had this kind of desire to build and create. I think entrepreneurialism at its root is solving problems, building, being creative, and thinking outside of the box, outside of normal solutions, and just being creative, and sometimes building businesses or building other things that are useful and help somehow in the world. I'd like to also add the idea that in my mind, entrepreneurship also includes helping people. So it's not just about building a business and making money, it's about building businesses and other things that are solutions to problems and that can benefit people. I just think it's really cold if all we think about is making money. And so that's what I wanted to talk about motives. And the other thing there's something that I've tried to live, and hasn't always succeeded, haven't always done it right, but I like to think in business and creation and all those other things of do it the Lord's way or don't do it at all. I think I've met too many people who think that when you start your business day that you can live by different rules than gospel principles. But what I'd like to challenge us all, and include myself, is to remember that we're asked to live the gospel 24 hours a day, no matter what we do. So it's either the Lord's way or don't do it. It's something I've tried to live by. I've had some failures along the way, so I want to talk about that as well. And I actually think that failure is actually one of my favorite ways to learn, and I'll explain a bit about that. So my background was in software development. Since a little child, and this is kind of a bit geeky. Actually, sorry, I forgot one thing. I wanted to do a two truths and a lie thing first. Sorry, I forgot all about that. So here's two truths and a lie, and you've got to figure out which one is the lie. So I was signed up to play professional soccer in England when I was a youth. I am related to the royal family in Britain, and I was a champion breakdancer in the 80s. All right, so hands up for professional soccer.
Wait, it's been the false or the true?
As being the hang on, the true. Okay, which one is the true? Was I signed up to play professional soccer when I was a youth in England? Why? Do you not think I'm good at soccer? Oh, I forgot. I'm also the head coach of the soccer team here. Did you know that? But that you knew. But that's true. But okay. Second, I'm related to the royal family. And third, I was a champion breakdancer in the 80s. You guys are good. I was actually a champion breakdancer in the 80s when it was cool the first time round. So now that you can't take me seriously for the rest of my talk, it was fun. Yeah, and when I was back at school in Provo, I was 32 when I went back to school, and they had a breakdance club, so I went and joined it just for fun, and I was old by this time, so it didn't work out so well. But back in the day, and my ward camp asked me to get involved in a dance competition. They have some of the older guys come out and try and have a dance battle and bring back the youth, and they asked me to get involved last year. You can Google it. You can put it on YouTube if you want. Laie 8th Ward, and I actually did a little bit of it, and it's the last time I will ever do that. That's done. But so anyway, so back in England, I was. Say again? They're all lies, apart from the breakdancer. I wish I'd have been signed as a professional soccer player, but no, I was a breakdancer. I'm definitely not related to the royal family. I'm weird, but not that weird. And gosh, this is going on tape, isn't it? Sorry. So my background at the beginning was in software development. I was always really intrigued by computers when they first came out. I lived in that generation where we didn't have computers, cell phones or anything like that. I've seen the transition from little technology to all the technology we have now, and it just amazes me what you can do with the cell phone these days, the power you have in your hand with those. Anyway, so I was introduced to computers. I liked the idea. When I was about 9, I started programming. In fact, I hate to admit this, I went on a vacation when I was about 11, and it was we have these holiday villages in England where you stay in a little apartment and everything's on site. You have a swimming pool and an activity center, and there's ping pong and everything else that goes on. And the first day I discovered there was a computer club, and they were teaching people how to program in BASIC, and I spent my entire vacation learning how to program BASIC. And yes, so I guess I am a nerd. But that's where I first got my habit, or sorry, not habit, but my love of programming computers. I continued that. I knew what I wanted to do for a career. And at 16 years old in England, we graduate high school. So after that, I did a 2-year kind of diploma in programming, and then I just started my career. So I was a programmer. And then I joined the church, and a few years after I joined the church, well, just shortly, I've served a mission in Paris, France. And that is where I met my wife, but it's a good story. I'll tell you if I have time later. But at the end of my mission president sat me down and said, you need to do something so you can remember your French language, like pray every day in French. And I thought, no, I can do better than that. So I married a French lady, and my French is pretty good. So at the end of my mission, came back, continued in programming, and then some opportunities arose for me to start a business. So this was my Alma Systems business that I started, software development. And it started small. It was initially just me and a couple of others. We've eventually had an office, and we were doing some interesting things. In fact, the really strange thing about that, our main customer was the National Association of Funeral Directors, and we were doing the insurance policies for them, where you pay for your funeral before, as you're young, and it's kind of morbid. But anyway, that was one of our customers. I had fun running that. And eventually that company failed. And I don't necessarily consider that opportunity to be a failure, but the business itself did not succeed. There was a point at which, after we had employed people and we were doing some good work and we had some great ideas, there was a point at which I had to take a lot of risk financially if I was going to do something with this company, and some other things happened and it failed. So I want to talk a little bit about failure, but before failure, the problem solving. The reason why I set up that company in the first place is because there was a problem, there was an opportunity to create a solution, and the creation of that company was an answer to creating that solution to that problem. And I think a lot of what we do in entrepreneurship and in creativity is solving problems. It's just looking for problems and then finding creative ways to solve them. So this is what we were doing, trying to find creative ways to solve other problems. But the other thing, I want to go back one step about this motives. I called the company Alma Systems for two reasons. One was that it's good to have an A in front of your company name because in the phone book, that's what people first search through, and so it's good to be at the beginning. You'll see, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in England you'll have A1 plumbing, A1 this, A1 carpentry, or aardvark is another one that they call because that's double A. Anyway, so Alma Systems was going to be early on in the telephone directory, and the second reason, the most important one, is I wanted people to ask me, why did you call your company Alma Systems? And then I would tell them where it comes from and maybe share the Book of Mormon and share the gospel a little bit. As it happens, nobody ever asked me why I called it Alma Systems. So that didn't work either. But that's why I did it, and I had this company, and it was really fun. But the thing about that is, even though that company didn't succeed, and I employed a few people, I was able to help some people from my ward who didn't have jobs and some other things. It was great fun, I enjoyed doing it. I wanted it to be big, I wanted it to be so that I could help lots of people, and that was my motive. So I really wanted to make a difference, and it was good to do the software development we were doing as well, but I really cared about giving people jobs and making a difference. But it didn't succeed, and you might wonder, that's a good motive, how come Heavenly Father didn't help me make that succeed? Well, there's a couple of things in that, and one of the things is that wasn't His will. That wasn't what He wanted for me. He didn't want me to, at that point, to create this big business and do that in my life. So I had to lay off one of my best friends and some other people, and that's kind of painful, but that's what we had to do as it was a failure. But the thing is, when you do this, if you set up a little business, whatever it is, you learn a whole ton of things. When you create a business and it's just you to start with, you start employing a few people, you have to learn accounting and budgeting and finance and how to deal with renting facilities and employment laws and human resources and wages and all the other things that go along with that, and insurances and such like. So I'm recommending to take some risks, create something. One way or another, you'll get some experience, because all the experiences I gained from that was the beginning of what allowed me to do all the other things I've been able to do in my life, because that was great experience to have. So from that failure, I learned a lot. And I really believe in learning by failure. And I'll try and say that in a better way. Imagine you give a student in a class a problem to solve that you know that they can't quite solve. So they try and they try and they fail. And after that, that student is probably ready to learn all that is necessary to solve that problem because they have context. So I really believe in this idea of sometimes you fail, but you have context about how you can then succeed. So what we're trying to say is don't fear taking some small risks and failing sometimes. I heard that, I'll have to verify this, but I'm told that Abraham Lincoln failed in business many, many, many times. He was a failure in most things he did before he became President of the United States. I also know that Colonel Sanders, the inventor of Kentucky Fried Chicken, went to hundreds and hundreds of different places and was told no every single time for a long time until he finally found somebody who would accept his product. So failing or not succeeding immediately is not a problem. So that was another principle. So failure is sometimes a good thing that we can learn from. So I learned from that, and then I continued. And then what I found is that when I was, so that company failed. I worked for the church offices in Europe and Africa for a little while and worked for a corporation, had a really good job. In 2002, the Lord decided He was going to change my life. And I just started having these overwhelming feelings that my life was going to change. I told my wife about it, and we didn't know it was coming, but this is a long story. But to cut a long story short, I ended up back at school at BYU Provo, doing my bachelor's, master's, and PhD over there in a subject that I had never even contemplated. So I had my background was in business and in software development and in various aspects of the IT industry. And the Lord decided He was going to take me out of that and put me into education. And my bachelor's degree was in French, just to get it out of the way, but then my master's and PhD were instructional psychology and technology, which is all about education and the technology involved in education. Eventually, when I did my PhD, I got into this, I was asked to develop an online class by somebody who was leading the program, and that was the beginning of the ideas that have led to what we do here on this campus. But just going back a little step, as I got back into my studies, I was living in Springville in Utah, and there was a charter school that had just been created and wasn't open. It was just in the initial stages of development. And I got involved in it because I wanted my kids in it, and you had to volunteer if you wanted your kids guaranteed spot. So I volunteered, and they asked me to set up all the technology for the school. So first thing I did is worked on a project to get all the technology in the school. And then they asked me to join the founding board. So I joined the founding board of that. They asked me to be the CFO. So I was managing all the finances and a lot of the other management of the school for the first year as it was constructed, and then helped it to be successful in its first year. So back to these things I had learned when I was in Alma Systems. A lot of what I knew how to do there was because I'd had to deal with accounts and finances and employment and all those other things. So based on my earlier failure, I was able to help with the charter school. But then when I was doing this charter school, which was a K through 8 charter school, really enjoyed it. It was a very good school. I loved the principles they'd set up for that school. What we realized is there was no high school for our students to go into. So I just had this really strong feeling that I needed to propose the idea of creating a charter high school. And then there was a group of us parents who got together who basically created a very intricate business plan for a new charter high school. The way charter schools work is community members propose something to the state government, and the state government decide whether they want to fund that school. So it's privately managed and run, but state funded. So we as a group of parents created this proposal according to all the rules they give for the proposals, and then we spent months and months and hundreds of hours putting together this business proposal for this school. And to be able to put that proposal together and to be able to try and get investors to invest the money it takes to build a school and everything else that goes with it required all those business skills that I'd been gaining from running a business. So one of the things I want to say is to be able to create and to provide solutions, you might have the natural skills to do it, you might be able to just jump in there, but the more you can get from your education, the more useful skills from your majors and minors that are useful here that you can get, the better off you will be when it comes to actually trying to do something. So if you can get accounting and budgeting and financial management and other such like skills while you're here, those will be very useful to you when you actually have the opportunity to create and solve problems. So there we were. So we were creating this business plan. And the other thing we did is we created a completely new model of education for that school that nobody else had come up with. And we basically wanted a school that prepared students for college by teaching them college methods and learning mechanisms and how you actually function at college. And there were some other things about it that were creative as well. But my point to that is one of the other things I think about entrepreneurship and solving problems is you really need to have the ability to think outside of what people typically do. And that's not easy to do. But it takes some personal risk to suggest things that are different. People are very comfortable with the way things are. That's just a way it is. I was the last corporation I worked for in England. I went into this executive marketing training meeting where they spent about half an hour just talking about change and how people are uncomfortable with change, most people. And that's true. We don't like change. It's uncomfortable for us in a lot of cases. Then he said is the movers and shakers of this world are the people who are comfortable with change. So I think one of the central tenet to being a good problem solver and entrepreneur is this ability to be comfortable with change and new things and be creative. Just because the school system has been the way it has for 100 years doesn't mean it's the right way. And in fact, an interesting concept about the way we do school, I've pondered this a lot, why we think that the way we do school is the right way to do it, and I've tried to track it back. Before we had public education, as far as I understand it, there was a couple of forms of education. One was you'd have masters and apprentices. That was an old way of doing education. So that's really just very individualized education, a master and apprentice. those kind of relationships happened sometimes at a distance by letter, but most of the time you'd be working with a master, and that's how you learned. The other way was middle-class families or wealthy families would hire a tutor who would teach to the children in that family everything. They'd be very highly qualified. They'd know languages, and they'd know math, and they'd know English, and they would teach the children. And what I think happened is when we decided we wanted public education, we took the model that was considered the best, which is, I think, the family tutor model. I think is just a really good model of education, or even the one-on-one master and apprentice. And they tried to put that model into a classroom with 100 people, and then we've been doing the same thing ever since. And I think to myself, but that's not the best form of education. The best form of education would be the one that they had to begin with, and we've got a copy of it that's not as good. Why is it we now can't get out of that paradigm? That's one of our constant problems in society, is being locked into paradigms. So anyways, we tried our best to break some of those paradigms, to do something creative. But again, to do that required all these skills that I had learned from my failures, in effect. So we built this charter school, and then at the same time I was doing my master's and PhD, and right at the end I was asked to do this online class, or a year before I finished, year or two. And right at that time, as we were doing it, I felt like if we were going to do online education, there were two things that I really didn't want to lose, or two main principles to these online classes. I did not want to lose the connections you have with people when you see them and you talk to them. And at the same time, I needed it to be asynchronous, because if you try and do something live online, you've just taken away the biggest value of distance education, which is flexibility. So my principle was that students needed to have time and location flexibility. They could do their work when and where they wanted, and yet still retain some kind of social connection, personal connection. And by the way, my philosophy on that is, and I don't necessarily know what the theory is that goes along with this, but I just feel like there's something that happens when people mix with people. As students, if you mix with a teacher who is somehow wiser, more knowledgeable, or has some skills that you don't have, and you recognize that, something happens. And I don't necessarily think it's just the information or the facts or the skill, but something about those relationships matter. So that's what I believed in, and I wanted those relationships to persist. And at the same time, having been brought out of England, I'd been trying to Skype with my parents from time to time, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but live communication has mostly been a pain in the neck, because either it's the wrong time of day for us or them, or their computer's not working, but mine is, or mine isn't working and theirs is at that time. And not only that, when you Skype, I sometimes find like it's not really quality conversation, because you're just finding something to say, and it's not the most effective use of that time. So what ended up happening is I ended up getting bored with that, and I just started sending little video clips of my kids doing fun things back to my parents. And so they're doing fun things on the trampoline, or when they were swimming, or anything else they were doing. When I thought it was worth sending, I posted to YouTube and sent them the link. What I found was that connection was just as good as it was, and maybe even better in some ways than when we would try and do live Skypes, etc. Because it solved all the problems I just mentioned. One, only one computer at a time had to be working, so I can post it when mine's working, theirs is working when they watch it. Two, they can watch it when they want to watch it, I can post it when I want to post it. And three, I only sent them things that were quality, as I perceived it. So all of those problems were solved. So that in mind as a background, I just wondered, could I do the same thing in education? Could we have students post videos as responses to assignments? And could we have teachers respond to videos in the same way, and students respond to students, and have them feel that they're present and it's social? So that's what I did in a pilot at Provo, and at the end of my PhD, when we had done all those trials, was when the job became available in Hawaii. And so going back to that time where I knew something was going to change, and I had some inspiration to move back into the US and go back to school, the end result of all of that was coming here to Hawaii with these experiences that I've just been given to open this distance education program here in Hawaii, which now has students in, like I said, 70 countries, and we're soon going to be announcing the ability to do an online associate's degree, and it's just a really fun thing to be part of to serve people, especially in the countries where they just haven't had access to this kind of education. So this is now quality education giving, where people in some of the developing countries have access to, and really anyone in the world, if they have access to the internet and a webcam, which seems to be that most people seem to have that availability these days. So that's all what we're doing now. And it's just a really exciting thing to be part of. But that way of doing education, once again, is a paradigm shift. It's different to the way that distance education is done, and it's different to the way that the normal classroom is done. So again, in this creativity, the ability to think differently, I think, is really important to be able to make a difference. Now, those experiences that you gain here, and as you start taking classes that open your mind to different possibilities, those are the kind of skills that will help you when you be able to solve problems. So I want to talk about problem solving for a little while. Like I said, I've always had that mind to try and solve problems, and I think that's just something that we need if we're going to be entrepreneurs, if we're going to be able to make a difference to the world. So I've had so many ideas, and I'm going to share a few of them with you. So you can have some ideas. Most of my ideas have come when I've hit some kind of problem or another. Some of them are kind of fun. And I haven't done these as business ideas because I'm just so busy with what the Lord wants me to do. We have a daughter called Chloe who is disabled. She is 6 years old now. She's missing the corpus callosum, which is there's a piece of tissue that goes between the two hemispheres that deals with the communication between the two hemispheres. She doesn't have it. She's a really cute child, but she has some issues to deal with. And if you met her, everybody loves her, even though she throws things at you and pulls your hair and so forth. One of her problems is when she's in bed, if she does a number 2, she likes to play with it and smear it all over the walls and such like. That's not a fun thing in the morning when you wake up. It's your turn to deal with the baby. So we couldn't figure out, though, how we could solve this problem because she's just really good at getting in anything. You can put tight things on her, whatever. She's just like Houdini. She can get in and out of anything we give her. So I ended up thinking up a solution. And it's a solution I think could actually be a business prospect, but I haven't done it yet. All I did was I took a pillowcase and found like a top that has a zip on the back, and I sewed them together. Well, my wife sewed them together because I can't do that, but she's got the sewing machine, sewed them together, and so what we do is in the evening we unzip the back of this thing, put her into it, put her arms in, zip it up, and she can't get in, but she's in a kind of a sleeping bag. And believe it or not, this product doesn't exist. We tried everywhere to find something, and so we invented this little product. I said to my wife, we need to market this. There's lots of people who have the same problem with disabled children, and there is not a product. So you're welcome if you want to. I haven't done it. I'm not sure it's a huge market, but there's something there. That was a problem that we face as a family. There's a solution to it that could be a business prospect. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of things that you can do that are entrepreneurial, you can see solutions to problems that you encounter, and then you can do something about it. You can find a solution. Here's a strange one. We lived in Utah for 7 years. We were in Springville while I was going to BYU Provo. And in the winter, it's really cold. In the summer, it's really hot. In the summer, we still heat water with electricity, even though it's really hot. And in the winter, we power fridge freezers with electricity, even though it's really cold. And I thought, that's a really strange thing to do. I guess because we've had the resources, lots of money to do it, but seemed like during the summer, when it's 100 degrees, you can heat water in other ways for free, and in the winter you can do some similar things. Anyway, so I had some fun in my yard. I built a swimming pool. It's kind of funny, which is another thing that I just thought outside of the box. You can buy decent big swimming pools for kids for several $100s, but I don't like spending money on things like that. So I decided to dig a huge hole. So in my yard, I dug this big hole, like 15 foot long by 8 foot wide by 4 foot deep, something like that. And then I bought the biggest tarp I could find from Walmart, and I put it in the hole, and I filled it with water. And, oh, I thought I'd switch that off. I'm so sorry. I will switch this off right now. So I dug this big hole, put the tarp in, put some water in and some chemicals, and we had a swimming pool. The only problem was I put it in the wrong place, so I actually had to move the hole. So I dug another hole and filled up the other hole with the, anyway, long story. I always have these creative ideas, that's one of the problems. But then it was, even though it was in Utah and it was hot, it just wasn't quite warm enough for my kids, so I invented a solar heater. I don't know if you've seen, I don't even know what these are for, but in Home Depot you can buy these tubes, these black tubes, they're kind of corrugated, about this thick, and you can buy them in like 50-yard lengths. They're for some kind of plumbing, I don't know what they're for, I'm not very good with construction. But I bought 2 of these, so I had about 100 yards of this piping, and I took the water from the faucet and I put the hose all the way up to the top of the roof. I sealed it into this long tube. I let it run all the way down my roof, all around my yard, and back into the pool again. So what it is, you fill it up with water and leave it for half an hour, and then it's piping hot. Then you turn on the faucet again, and it pumps all that water into the swimming pool. So for free, we had a heated pool. And when I was thinking about that, I thought, this is ridiculous. We pay all this money for this water heating, and that cost me like $50. I thought of another product that you're welcome to go and produce if you want, and that's something like a black box, a plastic box that's about this thick, but about 10 feet wide by 10 feet long. And then you just have this mechanism. You put it on the roof, and you're able to pump water in and pump water out, and you'll have hot water. You could attach it straight to a shower mechanism, so you could have an outside shower, and just as soon as you turn the water on, it will actually, with pressure, give you a pressurized shower. Anyway, these are problems that I've solved in some manner or another. I think you will find lots of problems that you can solve where you create some kind of industry or situation where you can be of benefit. And those are just a few that have happened in my life. There's quite a few of them. I've got so many ideas. I just don't have time to do them. But what I also want to talk about is there are different types of entrepreneurship. There's the standard type we think about, which is creating some kind of small business, building it up, and being useful in some way or another. That's kind of like the business model for entrepreneurship. But there's another type of entrepreneurship, and Richard, you were calling it intrapreneurship. Intrapreneurship is where you do similar creativity of building, but within a system that already exists. So for example, this online program that we do here at BYU Hawaii, when I came here, I really wasn't told how to do it. I was just kind of given the space to creatively create this program. But that's somebody else's money. There was budget for it, but I was able, into that space, to solve problems. So that's intrapreneurship. That's being in a system. So the charter school model, that's another one where there's already a system that gives you the possibility of solving problems, being creative, and making a difference. So I think that as communities and as members of communities, you can find ways to solve problems, be creative, make a difference to people's lives. Education makes a huge difference to people's lives. So the charter schools and the online program, these make a difference. And you will find opportunities to make a difference. Some of them will be by a business idea that you have. And that's wonderful. Maybe it'll be big, maybe it'll be small, maybe you'll be able to employ lots of people, but whatever the case, you can do something useful. Or maybe you'll see a situation, you'll work for a company, and there's the ability to, inside that company, be creative and solve some problem and make a difference. I've never been in a company that didn't like that. I've never been in a company that didn't like employees that had creative solutions to problems. So think about that. There's different ways of being entrepreneurs, inside of systems, outside of systems where you're creating something from the ground up, and both are valid. And what I want to draw back to is I want to draw back to the motives we talked about. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever you like. If it's not what the Lord wanted for you, it's just not such a good thing. You can, if you go down a road that the Lord asked you to go down and you fail, that's fine, because that's the path He'd set for you. And if you ask Him, where does He want you to live? What does He want you to do? What kind of major should you study? If you take that approach and put Him at the center of your life, then you will be useful in ways you'd never even thought of. So I actually want to give a little challenge today. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about whether the Lord is at the center or on the periphery of your motives, and decide to make Him the center. Ask where, what, how in your life so that He can direct it. And here's a promise I'll make to you. Firstly, I've heard a lot of people say think that being a member of the church is boring. Like living the commandments is boring. It's not as exciting as not living the commandments, or etc. But I tell you this, if you hand your life over to the Lord, you will have an adventure. Our family have had an incredible adventure. Here we are in Hawaii, doing this work, and there'll be other things afterwards. Because if you want to be useful to the Lord, He will make you useful. We all have something we came here to do. And you can be useful, and He will use your creative abilities, the skills that you have, in the way that makes the best sense to serving people and serving Him. That is a promise I make to you. I know that's real. The other thing I want to say is that if you make that commitment, you're going to put Him at the center and do it His way, or not at all, we'll be able to come back in 30 years' time as a group and swap the most incredible notes about what's happened and the most incredible things that have transpired. So here's the challenge. I want you to think about it, and anybody who's willing to do that, to put the Lord first, do it His way, and serve the way He'd want you to, and then just have the adventure that would bring, add me today on Facebook, and I want to keep in touch with everybody because I want to hear all the stories. And we will share them all, and I promise you we'll be able to write volumes and books of incredible things, because the Lord is real. The gospel is true. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. This is His kingdom upon the earth, and He works. And there are miracles that happen on a daily basis. These things are real. And if you put Him first and allow Him to guide your life, He will. And you'll have the most marvelous experiences, and you'll be able to serve people and be creative, and He will use you as you are. And so in conclusion, going back, I can see that in my life. There are things I've done, some have been a failure, some I don't think I've done very well, but the Lord was in control. And He uses those experiences to eventually take you to the place when you can be very useful. Richard, I'm about out of time. We want to go to questions now. Okay. Yeah, happy to take some questions now, if you have any. Or make some up if you don't.
When did you start here?
This was 3 years ago. It was June 2009. Yeah.
Why don't you tell a little bit about, you're doing some things with the courses right now. Some may or may not. How many of you are taking online courses or have taken them here at BYU-H? Okay, so man, you got a lot of people here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit how you tweaked. Sometimes that's one of the things of entrepreneurship, is changing things a little bit, or tweaking, changing. You obviously are having students and professors send videos back and forth and peer-to-peer. Can you explain a little bit about that and how that's maybe even being utilized not only here, but I think you've also talked in the education field to other schools. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, and strange as it may sound, this use of video we have is actually unique to this campus as a program. There's no other program doing it. And I have presented it and shared it. It's strange how it goes, is people don't like breaking their paradigms, even though it's so conclusive, the evidence of how people are connected so well with what we call asynchronous video. We're still the only campus doing it. Provo is doing a little bit of it, because just based on the pilots I did when I was there, but not as a program, not with like it infiltrating and being part of all the classes. So one of the things we do that's a bit different is we use tutors, and this is when the tutors are, when it works well, it works very well, and when it doesn't, we have some issues. But we have a teacher who's in charge of a class. Some of our classes actually have a teacher who just does everything, but some of our classes have a teacher who's in charge, but a tutor who does a lot of the responding to students. That's so that we can have more students in a class. That's a creative way of keeping the cost down and also allowing more students into the class. The other thing I didn't mention is our online program is actually super cost effective. The actual cost of running the program is getting down to about $40 per credit. The cost of running the campus is several $100s per credit. And as you know, the church funds a lot of it. Even tuition that you pay doesn't cover the cost of the campus. That's what allows us, and really I just think that these are not my ideas, but this is the inspiration of the Lord, because it's His plan. He wants to help His children, is bringing the cost down so that people all around the world in the poorest places can participate. We charge $10 a credit to students in the poorest countries. We could do it for free, except for the feeling is that students need to be contributing something so that they're invested in their education. Anyway, go ahead.
The acceptance
Okay, so the acceptance requirements for the online programs are that you can speak English to a degree that we can understand you. That really is the only criteria. We have students. It's interesting because it opens up this innovative ideas open up all sorts of other avenues that create innovative problems and solutions. We have students who, for example, didn't do so well at high school and couldn't get into university. What do they do? So we have some students even in this community who have been taking online classes, getting good grades because now they're ready to study, which gives, then you can use that as evidence to get into universities. That's something that's happening. We've got younger students who we have a 16-year-old who's done 46 credits online, got a high GPA and is coming to campus in fall. And we have lots of mature students who want to come back to school. And the answer is there is no, we have no regulation, no requirement other than the ability to communicate in English. And if you can't, we have classes to get you through that communication so you can communicate in English. So everybody can participate in the classes. It's a great question. Thank you. What else? Go ahead.
Are they offering higher levels so that somebody could potentially graduate with a full bachelor's degree, or are they mostly doing the prereqs and the associate's degree stuff?
We have 50 or so classes online at present. Most of those are GE and some upper level classes. We're getting there. Yeah, so the first pilot will be an associate's degree online, and then we'll see where it goes from there. That's the plan. Yes?
Do you have to go through any sort of patenting or copywriting to achieve this program? Or I'm sure there's steps, but because you said that you have your pilot in Provo, this is the campus that's doing your online, but not a lot of other campuses are doing this type of model.
Right.
Do you have to copyright it or patent it?
No. Perhaps I should. That's a great idea. But no, we haven't done that because the intellectual property belongs to the university. So anything we do, and universities share solutions with each other, so that's really not an issue. We're happy to share the model with people. But when I came here, this model didn't exist, and so the administration just said, kind of build a program, and even they saw this new model and didn't know what to think of it. So they considered it a pilot for the first little while, but it's been so successful. It's not perfect, for sure. We know that. We know there are issues we have to deal with, but it's been successful enough that our administration at least believe in it and are happy to pursue it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. What else? Richard.
I know this is being recorded, but who fights this change? Because people always dislike change when there's things intriguing. How difficult is that? You don't have to name names or whatever, but I mean, how difficult is it to make some of these changes, and how do you see that?
Right. Change is difficult. And I'll talk about this in broader terms rather than talking about this campus, is online education is the hot topic in education, wherever you go, in higher education. All of the big conferences with leaders of universities, that's what they talk about. And there was, for a long time, a discomfort. They're trying to figure it out. And really, the issue is the train has left the station. The question is, are you on it? Because the students are people are driving this. The customer's driving it. Students want flexibility. Students want cheaper options. Students want a lot of things. And also, states don't want to pay the price of a normal education. It's too expensive. And all these issues are in this mix, creating the need for other creative solutions. And online and distance learning are filling some of those needs. But then the question is, from the traditional campuses, and people who have been teaching traditional ways for many years, this might be seen as challenging. Because if you believe that the only way to teach is with a professor who has a PhD in front of you, teaching you, and if I'm the only person who can lead that discussion and help you to learn, what does that mean to me if you can do it through online education? So there is some discomfort that's understandable, but things change. There's an interesting study by, I don't know if some of you have heard of Clayton Christensen. He's a member of the church who was at Harvard for many years. And his study has been in what they call, I'm forgetting the terminology, it's disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations, innovations that disrupt the status quo. And there have been so many incidents of this. Here's a good current issue, newspapers. How many of you ever read a newspaper these days? I don't. There's a few people that do. I might read a campus one, but I'm not going to get like a real newspaper anymore. Why? Because all the news is on the internet. I don't need a newspaper. And the newspaper industries for years couldn't accept this. They just believed that it was in an inferior product. And most of the newspaper industries are now dead because they didn't know how to change with the new world as it was. So the internet, especially news media, was a disruptive innovation to the newspaper industry. What about books? How many of you love paying $200 for a book? That industry is going through the same issue right now. I personally want to have free books. For the online department, we try and make books free so the students don't have to pay for them. When I was back at school, I hated the idea of paying a couple $100 for a book that we'd only read twice a semester. So I want free online books. Well, now there are places that offer free online textbooks. And so the industry is shifting, but a lot of the companies are trying to hold on to their traditional revenue model. And then they put some books online. If the book costs $100 real, you might pay $80 for it online and get it for 3 months. That's the current way they try to think, but that's going to disappear because I don't want to pay that for an online book because I know that it doesn't cost anything to distribute it. So I know I'm being ripped off. So sooner or later, that whole industry is going to change. We don't know how exactly, but that's disruptive. So online education in higher education, where the standard product is a classroom and a professor with students present, that's the standard, and the disruption is online and distance education. So let me ask this question: how many of you think that, and it's okay to think this, that the best way of learning is with a professor with a PhD teaching you in a classroom?
I don't think a PhD is necessary, but I think live, I do learn better live.
Okay, yeah. And I'm not against that. A lot of people don't realize on campus that I don't have any particular sway one way or the other. I just want the best to students, and I want to be able to serve the students who don't have access to education. So I think that you could be right. It could be that some people, now, that may be true, or maybe it's just because that's the way you've been brought up. And maybe the way we're brought up just changes all of that. If everybody's brought up just with online elementary school, for example, does that change how you feel about higher education, maybe? I don't know. I just know that it's a time right now where online education is disrupting the flow of higher education, and we'll have to see where it leads. But it's interesting that not many people said that. In our surveys in our online class, I ask a question at the end, which is, you can answer both of them, which is, I believe that online is the best way of learning, and then the next one is I believe that face-to-face is the best way of learning. And it's about 50-50, curiously enough. And it tends to go by how much they liked the online class. If you have a class where they really liked it, it's it's closer towards 50-50, or even sometimes more than that, with the people who prefer online education. If it's a class they didn't appreciate, then it goes back the other way. So apparently it's just based on the current experience. Go ahead.
How about the curriculum as far as like the tests and filling in the bubbles and
Right.
whatnot? You guys, I came in a little late, maybe talk about it. Does it switch up the curriculum a little bit in regards to not just catering to the students that are really good test takers?
Yes, it does. Although what we do try and do is maintain the same standards as the university standards, because for the accreditation bodies, they want to know that the online classes are equivalent. So if we test in a certain way on campus, we try and test in the same way online. But we do a lot of students doing videos instead of papers to respond to certain tests. So instead of taking a test, you might have to explain your understanding on a video. So yes, that changes that. So students who are really good test takers, now they actually have to explain things, and we try to make it a balance and a mix so that it's not just one. But a lot of it depends on what is the current way of doing it on campus as well, because we try and make sure we do similar assessments. Great questions. Because that is another change. That's a real difference in assessment mechanism to have to record a video where you explain. It's an oral presentation, but just where the teacher isn't present. And that's a different thing that's come out of this online pilot. Great, we're almost out of time. Any more questions?
Let me ask one more thing related.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I've asked a lot, but it's very intriguing for me. this last term, for instance, in this class and a couple others, we did it through video responses.
Yeah.
Because I think that one of the best ways to learn is to teach.
Right.
But with this size class, it didn't seem to work very well. How are you able to potentially raise the level of video responses when that is the medium used?
Yeah. So one of the things we have to work on.
Skill level and so forth.
So the rubrics are just training students what it is we require from them. That's really important, so they understand what level, to what degree they need to present, and to what depth. And in answer to the number of students in a class, there's a couple of solutions to that. This is great, and I would love if somebody could actually do this even better. But we have a product called MySpeed, and you can get it as students too. You just have to pay $30, and you'd actually appreciate in online classes if you pay the price. What that does is you can speed up to 3 times any video you're watching on the internet. So when we're watching student videos, it's 5 now, is it? Okay, you can speed up. 5 times is really hard to understand somebody. Really? You got some that, well, some people speak really slowly, speed them up 5 times, and they're speaking normally. If you put me up 5 times, you'll never understand it. But anyway, we have that's another cool little technology that changes things. So when we're grading, we're sometimes watching students speak 3 times faster than the actual video. So it means that the TA can do a lot more work in a shorter space of time. Another creative solution. Yeah, you might want to look into that. But students could do the same watching the videos. So I have a class where there's videos of me. There's a religion class where there's nothing but videos. You could learn the same material and speed it up 3 times or faster. You can Google MySpeed, Enounce MySpeed, and there's a 7-day free trial, and then it's only $30 when you want to buy it. Great. Okay.
Thank you, Michael.